Hey, don't look over there. That's a mess. Let's look over here. Oh, yeah. Look at that. It almost looks like a car. Hey, we're back on the project, and in this one, I'm going to be figuring out the extra length I need to install my engine harness and make it kind of hidden. So let's get cracking. All right, so with everything kind of loosely bolted up, let's lay the harness down in here. So it's got to go from right in here. Just kind of jam that in place like that. Okay, so this goes down to portioning valve. That stays the same length. I'm not worried about that. Let's get these out of the way. These are all the connections that go to the wiper motor. Those are going to stay the same length. So we got all our lights and the horns. Come up over here. Let's just flop those down in there for right now. This looks like spaghetti mess, but trust me, I have a plan here. All right, so let's get all these. There we go. All right, white and pink. These both go to the distributor. They're pretty much going to stay the same length. I'm not going to worry too much about them right this second. That's going to be fine. So it's all this stuff that's going to head up to the front of the car. Headlights, and then all my connections for compressor and alternator and all my sensors. So I was thinking at one time about popping a hole over here somewhere and then just running the wire behind the fender, this inner fender, over to where the horns are. But I'm thinking just that the hassle with that might be more headaches than what I need. And I think if I run it right down in this corner, it should be fine. So I have some old cheap 1-inch conduit. So I'm gonna kind of run everything down into this so we can get a healthy idea where all this stuff is going. Come on, get in there. I think 1 inch is going to be the right size to have all this stuff flow in. Seems to fit it quite well. So the horns go in here. Those are going to stay the same length. That seems to be all right. Let's just take them right out of there. The lights are going to be interesting because I'm running relays. I'm going to put a set of relays down here and run a heavier gauge wire out to the lights straight from the battery through a relay. So that should help with the brightness on them. So let's feed this up. This just tucks down in here and rides right along that inner fender. That will kind of just be out of the way. That might work. Now I'll just put some clips to hold that in place. Subscribe, like, share, all the things you know you want to. Well, I actually stopped things for a little bit and scratched my head about it. And yeah, well, running the conduit in between here kind of puts it out of the way. But this is more or less where stock how they ran it. It's where the harness, it's kind of spaghetti because you had stuff going out this way connecting the sensors, and there's a line that went across the other side to the AC power. And so you only had one of the two circuit runs coming this way, and it was basically all the headlight stuff. And there's starter and wires. But I don't know. I think I am going to end up cutting an access hole down in here and then running it on the inside of this inner fender and then come back out of the access point over here where the horns are. I just need to cut the hole big enough to get this socket through. This looks like it's the biggest socket. So as long as I can get this socket through that access hole, I can one at a time put everything through, and that should run it. So that should be fine. What a mess. All right, so found some spare wire that I had laying around, and I'm going to use this to kind of gauge where I'm going to have to add additional run to it. So if I'm going to run that access through the other side of this and run the whole harness through there, I'm going to add 1 foot onto the entire, all the wires, the entire circuit, everything, all of them. Just account for 1 foot to get in and back out on this side, and that's what I'm going to do. I want to try to run stuff down the frame. With the headers and the way that mini starter is set up, it's going to be hard running the wires back the other way into the back and up to the blocks. So I think I'm going to run it down, come out where the horn access hole is, run it on this side of the battery, and then around down to the frame. There's enough holes in this frame I can put in some of those plastic round snap clips that you hold harness in, and I can run it down the frame and then right down in front of the engine mount and then over to the starter and run it like that. That should work. Yeah, I think that'll work fine. I might even put a connector somewhere in here, somewhere where I can just, you're only talking 3 wires. So if I get a heavy duty connector, I can unplug these 3 wires in case the engine, I don't even want to say it, in case the engine has to come back out. I want to make it so like I can just pop a connector here and then not have to actually lay on the ground and unbolt that stuff. So I'm trying to make it kind of user friendly. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, so all of this is going to end up coming out and then go around the other side. So let's start with this. So you've got the coolant sensor for the gauges, oil pressure sensor also for the gauges, and then the wire for the alternator connector. So all this is going to end up down here. And so it's going to come out roughly in this area down here. So I'm gonna also work that down to this frame and then around, and then there is an access hole through this bracket on the other side of the power steering pump, and it's right down in here. There's an access hole on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the wire come down through here, fish around past the power steering pump on the back side of it, out through that hole, and then up to the sensors, and then to the back of the alternator. So let me move the camera a little bit so you can actually see a little bit more what I'm doing here. So hopefully this is a little bit better. So there is, like I said, there's an access port right here. So if that basically sits in behind power steering pump, it's there. I have to find some way to secure that, but that's enough line to get through to pressure sensor. I got to drill into the intake side on, or the water passage side over here for the coolant sensor, since there isn't a sensor opening there, and then all the way over here to make it to, let's just stick that in there so it doesn't go anywhere. So let's give myself a little bit of lead here, and then it comes down and over, and it'll meet up with these. So let's say right there. All right, that is more than enough length for that to come through. So there are those sensor wires, and all I want to do is tape these two together so I know all three of these wires have to be increased in length by the length of this extra wire. So we'll just tape those together so we have them. All right, so that's locked in. Okay, so an extra foot for the entire run, and then this extra length for all three of these wires. So I can take that, throw it off to the side. Same thing with this. So this is going to run, and I got to get down to the starter. All right, hold. All right, so if I push that wire, that's a good amount of length past where the starter's actually at. So that gives me some breather room down there. So that'll come up on this frame, come around here, straight down at this point. All right, so hold that there. Here's my power wires. So it's going to have to come up, give it a little extra room there, and then fish down to, yeah. All right, so if I cut that right there, and I'm being very, very generous. I'd rather have too much than not enough. That would be bad if I if I did all this and everything started coming up short. So here are your starter wires, fusible link, all that, and this guy. Where did I slap my tape off to? Luckily, quite a few of these, they're all going in the same direction to the same place. Makes it easy. All right, so now you've got all the starter wire, it's all that. Take that off to the side. Everything that is left is all this stuff that goes down past the battery. There's an opening in the core support. All this stuff gets fed through it, and then it runs along the front side of the core support, all in this area underneath the front, and it's hidden. So that'll work well to get to the other side. And all this stuff, since I'm going to be hooking up all the turn signal lamps, the marker lights, all that stuff is staying exactly the same. The length that's on here, plus 1 foot for the whole C100 circuit, all that stuff stays the same. And actually, these two wires, beige and the light green, these two wires, tan, beige, whatever you want to call it, tan and light green, these two are your high and low beam wires. Now what I'm doing is back here on somewhere on, I don't know, I have to pick a spot, but somewhere on the core support I'm going to have the relays. So all this has to do is basically make it to this point here, and then it's going to go to relays. What I'm trying to do is I'm taking the headlights out of the light switch that's in the car. So normally what happens is you turn the lights, hit the switch, turn the lights on, and the power goes through the switch and back out and to your lights. What I'm going to do is bypass that. So these two wires that come from the switch, all they're going to do is activate the relay. And then the relay is going to send a 12 gauge wire straight from battery positive to the headlights. Should make them brighter, and it should help save that switch. So yeah, so all that has to do is make it here. I've got all that line, and I'm just going to, I'll figure out how much, like right from the end of where it comes out of this conduit that I put together, anything past that is what I don't need. That'll be enough to get to this point for the relay, and then I have the 12 gauge wire. So, and everything else in this run is going to stay exactly the same. So that is pretty much done for me. That's all going to stay the same. So the only thing that is left is this guy here. For your AC power, that's on the other side of the car, on the passenger side. This is the main plug. Some of you guys may be familiar with this because sometimes this thing will actually burn up a little bit. So this normally would have traveled either behind the carburetor or something along this path and over to the front of the AC box, and it would plug into there, and then this would plug into ECM. And let's see, you've got your AC compressor relay, and then you've got your actual AC compressor wire. So I'm not running an ECM on this, so I don't need the ECM connector, and I don't need the relay connector. So basically what happens is when you turn the AC on in the car, they did this for a while, so the ECM actually has the final say on whether you get to have your AC come on or not, depending on load conditions or whatever. So, because I think these 307s that these cars came with, now the one that was in mine was a hydraulic roller cam, and it was probably on the higher side of what they offered in horsepower, which still wasn't much. It was just about just enough to break the wheels, and you could like do a little tiny burnout, but that's about it. So there would, I believe it was on the gas pedal somewhere, but there was a throttle switch. So basically, if you gave it full throttle, then ECM was like, oh, he's trying to actually make this junky engine move. So what it would do is it would cut off the ground, and it would cut your compressor off. So whenever you bashed it to the floor, it would cut the compressor off, so the thing would actually get out of its own way. It was just for my application unnecessary. So basically, from now on, when I turn the AC on, the power is just going to go straight to the AC compressor, and it's going to have its ground, and it's just going to run. So I need to get this wire and this connector all the way over to the other side, but I'm not going to cross the engine. I'm actually going to run this in the same conduit and harness as would run along the front side of the core support with the headlight wiring. So I'm just going to run this thing the entire length, which means that from this point all the way over to the other side, to the other fender, has to be run through the front. So this is going to be the longest run that I'm going to have to increase, is this power wire that goes to the other side. So let me turn the camera again, and we'll kind of see how that works out. All right, so this is what I'm trying to get to. This connector right over here. Normally it would be over in this area somewhere and plug up and just like lay over the valve cover and look horrible. We're not doing that. So I am going to run this down behind this cooler. And actually, you know what? There is an access point on this side for the wiring for the power antenna. So I can sneak right through there behind this and come out of this access port over here and actually plug that in. It's not a bad idea. I think I might do that. Or at least figure out how much wire I would need if in fact that's what I wanted to do. So it's going to come up through here. Let's say, give myself some extra room. Let's say it would be that much. Right, because there's plenty of length here, so that should work. So that will come out in this area here, and then it comes up, it runs along the front, work with me here. It runs along the front here. All right, let's get this fit in through here. I don't want to let go of that. There we go. So that runs along same route as the rest of the wiring. Give myself a little extra room. Okay, so about that much. There we go. All right. Let's yank this all out. All this wiring will go along with this power cord. All right, we'll just tape this bad boy up on both sides. Now here's where it gets interesting, because once I sit down and I figure out all the length of all this wire, then waiting game starts, because I've got to order this stuff and have it shipped out to me. Some of it is possibly going to be special order, because I want every single wire to be color coded just the way the factory did it. So that way, if I ever have an issue with this, if I have a wiring problem, if I have anything that goes wrong, I can use the same diagnostic charts, the same test procedures that you would for a stock harness. So all the, except for the length of the wire, all this stuff is going to be the same. If I got to check the green wire white stripe, it's the same color, it's the same stripe. That's what I want to try to do, try to make this as easy to maintain and work on as I can. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. So the entire harness gets 1 foot plus whatever is in the wire there. See, wiper motor, that all stays the same. Wires to the back of the distributor, that's enough there for that. Wire down to proportioning valve. Horn wire's good, and I took care of the rest. So yeah, that's everything. So now I just got to measure, do some simple math and add, and then get on the phone and order this stuff. Now, I'm probably going to have even more than what I've kind of laid out for myself, because I think, if I remember right, most of this stuff you had to order in like 5 foot lengths. So it'd be 5, and then if you wanted more, it'd be 10, that type of thing. So I'm probably going to have plenty of wire for no matter what I want to do. Good. Good. All right. Well, that is it. And I almost forgot this little guy, the compressor connector wires. So anyway, so if I've got to go through this access point behind the fender and then up to that access point back there where the antenna wiring comes out. So if the plug, because I want the plug outside, I don't want it inside the fender, I want it out. So if the plug is sticking out, that means the compressor wires are going to have to come all the way back to this point and then out. So I've kind of made up for that length by this, because the compressor wire will reach somewhere in this area. So I just kind of fudge the wire a little bit. So the wire would come down, it would actually come through the inner fender and out here. I'd loop it around this way down to the frame, and I'm kind of giving myself a little extra loop there. And then up through the back, there's space where the bracket is at, and then right around to the connector, and I've actually given myself a little bit more room. So now I've gotten everything. Whew, man, almost forgot that little guy. And that's it for this one. Thanks for coming along for the ride. I'm really looking forward to working on this harness. It's something I've been really itching to do. Never done one of these before. All it is wire and splicing and soldering and crimping. How hard could it be? Anyway, appreciate you being here. It's still hot. Why is it so hot? Al Gore might be right. Anyway, that's all I got for this one. Take care of yourselves. See you on the next one.